you're right. I have this hunger to learn the next thing on what I like to think of as quantum manifestation.
Yeah. Yeah. So quantum manifestation sounds like something very different than sales. So let's talk about how you got from what if story is the answer to our crises of meaning and belonging, to our impulse to heal our lives and help others, to our desire and drive to leave this world better than we found it. Now, we love good stories. In fact, we're kind of obsessed, not just with the stories themselves, but with the stories behind the stories. Their oddly perfect timing, the healing process they provoke in their authors, and their capacity to catalyze individual and collective change. And we love exploring these with writers, thought leaders, entrepreneurs, healers, parents, and others. Tune in to hear these stories behind the stories and entertain with us the real possibility that whether you are a teller or a consumer, story is always offering or leading us to an answer. If you had told the adolescent Ursula Mentjes that she would eventually become a sought-after motivational speaker, an award-winning entrepreneur, and the author of 4, soon-to-be 5 best-selling books, she probably wouldn't have believed you. You see, a challenging childhood that makes a person want to go invisible and a terrifying fear of public speaking are not exactly the obvious ingredients to a career like hers. And yet, here she is. And today, we asked her how she did it. Tune in to hear how Ursula overcame glossophobia and healed stories around visibility and so much more over the course of her career. You'll learn how she knew it was time to expand from entrepreneur to author, and how she wrote 4 books to meet the needs of her clients and has really tried and experienced all of the pros and cons of all of the publishing venues. You'll learn how she struggled to own her own author-writer identity and how she decided to rebrand and avoided some of the traps associated with her newest approach. It's that time. Grab a cup of something yummy, and hey, it's Ursula, so maybe a good chocolate chip cookie too, and come sip on some sips of story and sanity with us. Welcome to Sips of Story and Sanity, where we talk about the stories behind the stories with authors, speakers, thought leaders, healers, parents, and more. My team, Erin.
Hello.
My sister, Alyssa.
Hi.
And clients turned friends turned team members, Teddy and Lori.
Hi, everyone.
Teddy's not here today. They're all here to help me make sure we get the most delicious sips of story and sanity out of this experience. And today, I'm so excited because we have Ursula Mentjes here, who is an award-winning entrepreneur, sales expert, motivational speaker, and author of 4 best-selling books. She was promoted from account executive to president of an international technical training company in just 5 years at the age of 27, when the revenue was in the tens of millions. Ursula specializes in neuro-linguistic programming to help clients 2 times their monthly sales while also releasing 10 hours or more off their work week. What? Who does that math? Her clients include Aflac, Ebenezer, Keller Williams, Fairview Hospitals, New York Life, Paychecks, and more. She is on a mission to help millions of women business owners break through the 7-figure mark. Welcome, Ursula.
Thank you. That was really nice. It's almost, you realize you wrote it later. You go, oh, I think we wrote that, but it's like, thank you. When you say it, it sounds so fresh. And I'm excited to be here and hang out with all of you today and tell some of the interesting stories behind the stories.
Yes, we have been on this journey together for 15 years now. I think it's 15 years.
I know.
22 makes 15.
It's a lot.
At least in this lifetime.
Right.
And we went very quickly from being me coaching content to you coaching me in business to friendship and figuring out how to be moms together and all of that fun stuff while also building businesses. So we have so many stories, and we'll probably need more than just one podcast, but it should be fun.
Yes. And soul sisters, you forgot that part.
Soul sisters. Yeah, I know. This lifetime. We've done this before, clearly.
Yes, for sure.
So I want to start at the beginning because this talks about this bio that I just read talks about everything that you're doing now, and that you started out in the corporate world, getting to president of a multi-million-dollar company before you were 30. So what made you decide like it was time to become an entrepreneur?
Such a good question. Well, when the company eventually was sold, and I did have the opportunity to buy the company, and I look back at that and I'm like, I'm so glad I didn't. And I knew that it didn't feel like a fit. It was selling computer training and consulting. And while it was fun and I learned a lot, it was like getting an MBA on steroids, I was also done. Like, you just know you're done. And I'm done selling technical training and consulting. It was just felt complete. And I thought, well, what am I going to do now? And I remember sitting before I was done, I was sitting in my office overlooking the John Wayne Airport. I still see it today. And I felt this, like, I don't know, maybe a still quiet voice or something in my head, or maybe it was a guide or whatever you want to think about. And it was just this message of, there's more for you. There's more for you. And I started to hear about coaching then. And this was before I left that job. I started to hear about coaching, and it was kind of like the field was new at the time. This was, almost 20 years ago. I'm not going to do the math. It was something like 20 years ago. And so it was a new field, but there was something about it. I had majored in psychology and communication. So it was a natural kind of like wanting to help people, but I didn't want to help people. I didn't feel called to be in the technical skills training anymore. So I'm like, what is this? And so, when you get those divine downloads or whatever you want to call them, like, I knew something else was coming through, but I didn't know what it was. And I just started to do a lot of research on coaching. And then when I decided I wasn't going to buy the computer training consulting company, I thought, well, what's next for me? And so I started interviewing. Like, all I knew for myself at that time, like, my identity was really tied up in being president of the next $20 million company. And I started interviewing, and every recruiter just was like, no. And I'm like, why? Well, you're too young. I felt like some of them were thinking you're too female. They just didn't say it out loud. You're too a lot of things. And I kept getting all these brick walls. And so I thought, well, what am I supposed to be doing? And one day I was talking to this recruiter, this gentleman who pretty seasoned in his field. And I could tell he was kind of annoyed with me. And finally, he's just like, why don't you just start your own company? Like, he said it in a way, like, to me, what he was trying to do, like, was a takeaway, like takeaway clothes, like, go start your own company, see how that goes. And, or take this job that I want you to take so I make money. Like, that was kind of the trip for him, like, for him to get paid on placing me somewhere. But in that moment when he said it, I was like, oh, that feels right. And I think all of a sudden I probably had a big smile on my face, and I was like, thank you. I think we're done here. So I left the office. I never interviewed again. That was the last interview of my career. And I went home and I talked to my husband, Tim, and I said, I think I'm just going to start my own company. And of course, Tim's like, well, that's what I've been telling you, like, start your own company. So, there's always these people around you, but you have to hear it from some random stranger to believe it. And then I thought, well, what the heck kind of company? So what happened is I got a call from a friend of mine from the technical training industry, a guy named Roger. Roger's like, hey, why don't you come and do some consulting for me? Do it under your own company, like, as you figure out what you're going to do. But he's like, I could really use some support with my sales team. And that's when it was really born. It was like, oh, right. Like, I'm being called to do coaching, training, consulting in the sales space where I could really make an impact. And I didn't even know about entrepreneurs yet. That wasn't on my radar yet, but I knew I could coach and train salespeople. And so that's where it all started.
Wow. And at what point did you decide that it was time to write your first book? What was the time gap there?
When did I leave? Oh my gosh, like, I have to do math now. So that was
no, not math.
2000 and it was a couple years. So I launched my own company it probably started about a year later, a year after I was doing this consulting with Roger. I kind of like that, I was probably there a year, and it was great. It was like a real blessing. And I learned a lot about like just watching him run his own company. I thought, well, I could probably do this too, just in a different way. And so then I started my first company, which is Potential Quest Inc., which was coaching business owners, because I'd started to do all this networking. And I realized really quickly that, yes, I could coach and train salespeople, but entrepreneurs really needed help and they didn't know how to sell. So I saw this need and I thought, well, I can help them sell and then their company would grow. And wouldn't that be amazing? Because I thought everyone knew how to sell, and it turns out that's not true. So I started to do this work, and I joined, like, my first, people ask me, what did you do to market first? I networked. That's how I met Amanda. That's how I met so many people that are still in my network today, still power partners in my network today. So I was in a group called the Leaders Club, which is kind of like a BNI. I was in 2 chambers, the Corona Chamber of Commerce, the Riverside Chamber of Commerce. Then I was in NAWBO, National Association of Women Business Owners, locally in the Riverside area. And I was just out networking like crazy. And what happened was people would ask me, like, what do you do? And I would tell them. And then they would say, well, oh, could you do a workshop on that? Could you speak on that? And my first answer was no, absolutely not. I have a deep fear of public speaking and I hate everything about it. But then they just kept asking. And one day somebody's like, well, what if we paid you to do it? So my first speaker's fee was $500, which I thought was like winning the lottery. And so I did both paid and free speaking. And then though, like, I was doing so much speaking. And what I realized is I was saying the same stuff over and over and over and over again. And that's when it became really clear. I was like, gosh, I'm so tired of saying this. Like, could I just put it in a book so someone could read it to themselves and they would get the information in case they can't hear me speak somewhere? Because I want people to sell more. So then the idea of writing a book was born. Now, I didn't know anybody like in my circle at the time that had written a book or could be like, here, go hire Amanda. Like, I didn't know Amanda yet. And so I went to the learning annex. This is taking me way back, right? Some of you listening probably remember the learning annex in LA back in the day. To my knowledge, does not exist anymore. But I signed up for this, I don't know, it was like $20 to listen to this woman speak about how she grew her multi-million-dollar publishing company. I wasn't looking at a publishing company, but I thought, well, if she can build a publishing company, I'm sure she can tell me how to write a book, right? Or what's entailed. So I went to this event, and this woman, whose name is escaping me in this moment, but the essentials of her story was that she had written her book in jail while she was in jail, because she had grown a drug running company, not the legal kind, and she's a very successful entrepreneur in that space. But anyway, her lawyer was like, you got to figure out something else to do with your life because you can't go back out to this. She was a great entrepreneur. So he's like, why don't you write a book? So she did. She got out of jail though and couldn't get published, and therefore then had to solve that problem and started her own publishing company, which became a multi-million-dollar publishing company. And she gave us the bullet points of how to self-publish your book. So I did that. I followed the steps. I wrote my first terrible draft, and then I realized I needed more help. And I reached out to my circle, my network at NAWBO, and our mutual friend connected me with Amanda. And the rest is history, or her story, right?
Yeah. Well, I think one of the things that I thought of while you were sharing that is, this idea, this feeling that like I'm saying this over and over again, and I'm so tired of it.
Yeah.
This happens with people like you who aren't just people who are teachers and empowerers, but people who are avid learners. So, you know what I mean? It's like, that's something that I've witnessed over the last 15 years is watching you just, I don't know, how many books a month do you read?
I'd say 5 to 10 or more.
Right. Like voracious learner.
Yeah.
And so, when that happens, you're always at your own leading edge, always finding the next thing that you want to insert into this training, the next thing that you want to add to this, the next big concept you want to teach someone. And that starts to create a lot of tension for people like you who are, always growing and then being asked to teach the same thing over and over. So.
Okay, I have to insert something here because that's one thing I love so much about you, Amanda, and your community is that, and you especially, like, have a gift for explaining what I might perceive as a problem, which is I am a voracious learner. I can't not read the next, like, I'm constantly reading 2 or 3 books at the same time. And sometimes, like, I don't even tell people that because they don't know how to take that in. And it's just like, it's kind of a weirdness. And I've always been like this. from a young child, I would read all the books and I'd win all the contests for book reading. And I just loved to learn. And somewhere along the line, this is interesting, like that you bring this up, because I had a prayer, like I have a prayer that I still say, but originally the prayer just came out, God, if you'll show me, I'll show everyone. And as I learn it, I will teach it. And I still live that. And you're right. It's why the next book is always like trying to come through, because I made that vow. It really does feel like a vow in this lifetime. But I don't want it to stop, because you're right. I have this hunger to learn the next thing on what I like to think of as quantum manifestation.
Yeah. Yeah. So quantum manifestation sounds like something very different than sales. So let's talk about how you got from sales.
We skipped some stories there, just a little bit.
So we worked on Selling with Intention. We wrote a workbook in, I don't know, 2 weeks or something. You launched it. And then already you were off to the races with the next book, which was One Great Goal, right?
Yes.
So One Great Goal was, it felt like a departure from sales, but it turned out to be something that really helped you with the people that you're working with. Can you share how you made that transition?
Yeah. So the One Great Goal process really felt like a divine download. And I started doing the process before I wrote the book. And it was just a clarification process for people to figure out what they wanted. Because especially for, and both an entrepreneur and a salesperson, but if we're thinking about a business owner, it's hard to like go on to make a bunch of money if you don't know what you're going to do with it. Like if you don't care about making money, you're not going to make it. And so what I realized is that my clients who had really big dreams and goals to give back to organizations they care about. This is the next book, right? But to give back to organizations they care about and live a great life, there's a certain financial aspect of like needing money to make that happen, right? You can't write big checks to your favorite nonprofit if your bank account is zero. So the real problem. So what I realized is that when we went through the One Great Goal process and people got really clear on what they wanted to create in their businesses and their lives, and they're just in their everything, the money would follow, which meant that they could more easily sell. It's like it clicked into alignment for them. So that helped give a bigger vision to their why, and then the money would be like the sales got easier.
Yeah.
I didn't know that while I was writing it though. That wasn't like, there was just later I was like, oh, I totally get this now. I just knew I needed to get the clarification process out there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's still one of those books that I know a lot of your clients buy in bulk for all of their people, right? It's a powerful book. So you're helping people now get clear on their goal so that they can increase their sales, and then something magical starts to happen in your own business. And so then I think this is about the time where you started really talking about quantum physics and synchronicity, and when we got into Selling with Synchronicity days. Is that?
Yeah, it was kind of like, it was the time when all of a sudden The Secret was out and that got really popular, and just this realization of like, ooh, the law of attraction, which wasn't the full story. And painfully I got to practice all of that with my clients to figure out, well, what is how does one really manifest if it's not just a vision board, which works for some people because they don't have any blocks, right? So then I started to realize, wow, like some people manifest really quickly and other people get stuck on certain things. Like, why do they have blocks? And then I really started to dive into, the beliefs around it, the thoughts around it. And that's when Selling with Synchronicity was born. Like we started to touch on those topics. Like, how do we get ourselves out of the way so we can be in full synchronicity? And that started a lot of deep healing work for me, for my clients, for everybody, because there was so much subconscious stuff that we just didn't even know. We obviously didn't know about, right? So then it was like, how do we clear that out so we can just start to move forward? That's where the NLP really came in, neuro-linguistic programming, in terms of studying, why successful, how successful people think, right? and what allows them to move really quickly versus somebody else who's stuck in the same story or pattern for years. And you can just see them circling through. You can't see it with your own stuff usually, because I could see some of my clients just getting really stuck. And then I just have this commitment, like, what do I have to do to help them figure this out, to get them clear so that they can have that same result? And that journey really started to open up.
Yeah. So one of the things that I know, because I've been walking alongside for 15 years, but also because I've been on this journey myself, is that there is no creative process that leaves you the same, right? Like you just want to write the book, you just want to take the business to the next level, but then there are all of these other things that come up, as like you're saying, the beliefs, the obstacles, the challenges that happen in relationships or finances or whatever it is. So for you, as you're writing through all of these incredible concepts, you're growing a business rather quickly, helping a lot of people. Tell us a little bit about what all of these processes have helped you to sort through. What are some of the big things that you've had to overcome on this journey?
Yeah. So I would start at like just the beginning of my life. I had a very interesting childhood, and I use the word interesting because I just don't like to put a lot of words or explanation around it. And I don't think I even knew then the extent of which I had been impacted by a lot of things, and I had minimized a lot of things, like, oh well, yeah, but it was such a gift. Yeah, okay, it's a gift. There were gifts inside of it. And there was a lot of terrible stuff, a lot of stuff, like even to the point where sometimes when I'm talking to healers or therapists, like they're kind of surprised. And when they're surprised, you're like, okay, I guess I'm probably worse than I thought, right? So the flip side of that is, like, I think I came to the planet as, for lack of a better term, like an old soul ready to do the work and to see the gifts inside of it. And also like had read a lot of books on that, and eventually got a master's degree kind of in that same time frame in psychology, just to learn about family systems myself, right? So it brought up this writing about it brings up everything, and you get confronted with it, and either you're going to deal with it now, or it's going to come up again and again and again, and the people around you are going to be mirrors for whatever the stuff is that you haven't healed yet. And I know I haven't healed everything. I can tell you, because last Thursday I was on another session with a healer who's helping me work something out right now that I need to work out. And I'd love to put a banner up for working with healers and therapists and coaches and all the people who have helped me move forward and be fully healthy. But it's not easy. It's not easy. And at the same time, the more willing you are to just be like, oh, there's something I need to deal with, and to be willing to walk through it and work through it, whatever the issue, the faster you're going to move on your journey. I can remember my therapist when I was in college, like really starting to uncover a lot of this. His name is Eric. I'll never forget Eric, like such a blessing in my life. And one of the things he said to me is, he said, Ursula, I really appreciate how you come to therapy prepared to work through whatever you're confronting right now. And you're so committed to just doing and feeling better. He's like, that's really a skill. Like, he really held up a mirror to show me, like, this is really going to serve you well in life. And I just thought everyone did that. Right? I just thought everyone was like, here's all my stuff, let's work on it today. So for whatever reason, that was inside of me, this desire to heal. And I'm grateful for that. But when I look back now, I realize, oh yeah, that needed to happen so that I could shine a light on how important mental health is, how important going to a therapist or a healer or a coach is, especially as the world got more interesting, right? As we've all moved forward. So I want to continue to be a beacon of light in the space of mental health, and doing your work and getting the support and help you need and taking the shame out of it, right? Like,
yeah, absolutely. But I kind of wonder if some of our listeners and viewers are wondering, like, so she's writing about sales and she's doing self-work, like, connect some of those dots for our listeners. What is it? Because so many people come in and they're just like, I'm going to write about this topic that they do not see as related at all to childhood traumas or adolescent challenges, or, you know, they don't make those connections. So what do you see, like, for you and commonly in this space? Where do those connections happen?
Yeah. Well, in the business world, like if you have a lot of trauma, or if you, and it doesn't have to be a lot of trauma, if you have something that happened to you that affected your willingness to have a difficult conversation, because I think selling can sometimes feel like a difficult conversation, or to even ask for the sale. Like I've met clients where they had a lot of stuff around money, and their parents didn't have money, or their parents wouldn't give them money, or their parents told them all rich people are, you know, whatever the limiting belief is or whatever. Whatever happened, it's going to stop you. One of my coaches once said to me, you can only go as far as you're willing to go before you stop, and to pay attention to where you stop, because that's your issue. And that's probably what you need to work on next. And in business is a playground to see what's up in your world, right? Because starting your own business, running your own business, and sales and growing your business, it's going to bring up all your limiting beliefs, all the stuck stuff, anything that, like, you know, about visibility or asking for what you need, even though it's not for them. Even though it's for them, not for you, it's going to bring stuff up. And as it does, that's the opportunity to clear it so you can grow your business or grow your sales or do whatever that next thing is that you're being called to do.
Yeah. What were some of those for you? I know I love the story that you tell about becoming a speaker because of how terrified you were of speaking. Like, I mean, anyone who's heard you speak will be stunned to hear that you were, right? Alyssa's nodding her head. Scared to speak. It's common, but it seems like that was even more terrifying for you than the average Joe.
Let's talk about that. All right. So we're going to go all the way back to 9th grade. Okay. I can clearly remember being in 9th grade, and we wrote a paragraph about something that we were studying in class, and then we had to read it in front of the classroom. I can remember walking to the front of that room, sweating, thinking I would rather be dead right now, feeling outside of myself. I was having a panic attack. I didn't know what it was, and being like outside of my body, so dissociating for those therapeutic terms, and trying to read this paragraph. Now, later in life, I Googled it, and it's called glossophobia. It's the deepest fear of public speaking you could ever have, which I clearly had. I was one of those, like, I was raised on a farm where, like, the belief was you just push through something. So I'm like, all right, like, how do I get to the other side of this? Like, how do I get to a place where I'm not afraid to just read paragraph in front of the room? So the push through was to join speech theater and to compete in front of hundreds of people. That was my push through go-to. Now, my best friend Michelle.
Not a baby step, exactly.
Yeah. That is brave.
I want to get to the other side.
What are you saying about being ready and showing up to do the work?
This is true, right? Like, I was like, what is it going to take? So now my best friend Michelle and I did it together. So she would do drama. So she would memorize a dramatic piece and then deliver it in front of a room. And I decided to do like storytelling or prose. And so it was a little bit different. Drama, you had to like act out the whole play, and drama, you're just kind of delivering it, right? And I consistently got red ribbons. I can remember every meet getting a red or a participation ribbon. Participation was better than a red, at least it felt that way to me. And torturing myself for a couple of years, just doing it over and over again. And I never did well. It was always awful. I always had panic attacks. So fast forward, I go to college and I'm like, I got to get over this fear because someday I know I'm going to need to speak in front of people. I don't even know why I thought that or knew that. I just thought, I think someone had said, like, a well-meaning teacher's like, if you can't speak in front of people, you'll never make it in life. And so that's in my mind. And then my fear got worse. So I majored in psychology to figure my stuff out, right? And communication to torture myself. Now, when you major in communication, you're in front of the room on the regular being videotaped, and then the videotape is deconstructed with the group, and you're criticized on like the 9th degree. So there I am, like totally abusing myself, right? And it was terrible and it was terrifying. And then I started to crack through a little bit. I got good at, and here's what's interesting, I got good at performing even while having a panic attack. So I could deliver while having a full-blown panic attack. Now, those of you who have had a panic attack, you know this is very interesting and quite a skill to develop. So with that new skill set, I started to get A's. I was getting A's in my my major by the time I graduated. And I thought that was a big win. Little did I know, I didn't know there was a world without panic attacks until I got to I had that fear all through my corporate life, which caused me to have chronic shingles, which is also a fun journey. And also, made me realize there's a better way. Like my body's trying to tell me something. And so it wasn't until I'd worked with many healers who, I'm not going to go into the details, but really got into my fear of being visible in the world. So my subconscious belief that it's not safe to be visible, which like I'd proven that it wasn't, right? I would have panic attacks. And then it went back to my childhood where it truly wasn't safe to use my voice. And once we cleared all that out, and that was multiple healers, many years, I finally got it. I finally got it out. And now I don't have panic attacks on stage anymore, which is really cool. And in fact, I can actually now come from a place of, I like to think of it as a place of love and, giving. Like when I'm on a stage now, like my prayer before I go up is that like whatever needs to come through will come through for whoever's in the room who needs to hear it. And I just get out of the way and I can let that happen. But that was the journey. And when I think back, it's like, because people ask me like, why'd you keep doing it if you hated it so much? Well, because it wasn't that I hated it. I didn't like how I felt when I had a panic attack on stage. That wasn't fun. The flip side though, there was a part of me that when I connected with the audience and I was like divine downloading whatever needed to come through, it was amazing. Like that level of love and connection was like unexplainable. So that, like, I felt the calling of, well, you're supposed to be on stage, you're supposed to be delivering your message. So that's where you're supposed to, like, that's where I was supposed to be. So I kept following that.
Yeah. I love how that parallels your conversation around being an author and a writer. Was it when we were working on the belief zone that you were like,
Yeah.
Talk about that? Because I mean, this really does all boil down to like these identities that we have around ourselves and the identities and the beliefs associated and how they keep us from not just doing the things, but even when you have a drive and a personality and a knowing like yours that pushes you to do the thing, how sometimes it keeps us from even owning the fact that we've done the thing.
Yeah. So I had a belief that I was an entrepreneur who wrote books, but not an author. And that those were two very distinct things. Until one day when Amanda was like, no, you are an author and you're actually really and a writer. Like I wasn't an author and a writer. I was just an entrepreneur who wrote books. And Amanda corrected that belief for me. She's like, well, actually you're really a good writer and you are an author. And it's probably time to like let that old thing go. So I had to do some work around that piece. And it was so ingrained, like it was safe to be an entrepreneur who was a writer, but not to be like, I didn't belong in the world of authors or writers. Like that was for them. That was those people. That definitely wasn't for me. Like I wasn't good enough. That was the belief.
What was special about those people though? Did you have a quality that was special that you didn't see yourself as owning?
Yeah. I mean, better writers, better at being visible, better at making their covers look amazing, better at getting book publishing contracts, better at everything. Like I had a whole long list of them could do that, but not me.
Yeah.
And you're like, yeah, you've got like, no, that's not true.
Meanwhile, I'm watching her figure out like the publishing world, and not just figure out the publishing world, but how to completely flip off all of the formulas for creating bestsellers. Like, no, I don't want to do that much work. I'm going to do it like this, So, I mean, can you share some of the stories behind the stories around your publishing journey? Because you have done this in a myriad of ways because of how many books that you've had released.
Yeah, I started out by self-publishing and really learning from you and that other woman whose class I went to, and just, seeing that there were, and my timing was good because self-publishing was getting easier at that time because of Amazon and lots of things that were happening. So then self-publishing, and then I had what I would call a hybrid publisher, which was half self-publishing, half traditional publishing. And then I was invited to, actually, it was an interesting story because Brian Tracy, the sales trainer, sales guru out in the world, has been a great mentor to me and a supporter of my books, gave me his book proposal and said, just take a look at it and use like whatever,
Wow.
And I'd seen a lot of book proposals before, but it was like, it wasn't that different. It was all the things you would imagine. But what it was for me was the strength in my belief that I was doing it right, that I wasn't missing anything, that, and that's how I ended up getting what is now more of a traditional publisher for a 2-part book deal, which we just now finished the second book a while ago. It's just sitting there, which I know we're going to talk about, where they do everything. And except for, like, a lot of people don't realize, no matter what, your publishing company is not going to launch your book for you. Like, that is always a big surprise for people. So unless that's the deal you buy or that's the deal you get, but even super traditional book publishing companies, they expect the author to promote and launch the book.
Yeah. That marketing and self-promotion section of the book proposal is I always imagine it's the part that they flip to first before they even read the synopsis.
So you're probably
right? Just like, are we going to be able to sell books? No. Great idea. Out the window.
If it's only this big, yes, it goes in the round file. And if it's at least a page long, they're like, oh, put it in the maybe file for sure. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Which, I think is one of the reasons, like you said, why not just the belief that you could get a publishing deal, but the knowing of the publisher that you have such an enormous track record of being able to sell books and sell anything, really. So
that helps. Yeah, that's it
helps.
An important point. But also not like that shouldn't be a reason to not write a book, because I can feel people who might be listening might be like, well, I don't have that. When I wrote my first book, my hope was that one person would read it, that if one person read it and they sold more, it'd be great, because it's also powerful to be able to say you're an author and to be able to say you did this. And, because not everyone's going to write a book, and it kind of establishes you as, not kind of, it does establish you as an expert and an authority in your area. So I just don't want to discourage anyone. Like, don't let that be the thing, because platforms grow. Like, that's what a publishing company is going to be. What's your platform? Meaning, how many people are on your list? How many people are on social media? All these things. That's your platform. Your platform's going to grow. And most authors write, like, before they have big time bestsellers, they've written a bunch of other books. Most authors have, but they probably self-published or, fill in the blank.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been really interesting to watch that part of your journey, because we helped you self-publish one of them, right? And then you've self-published on your own a few of them, and then the hybrid. So it's just been interesting to watch all of the pros and cons, because whether I'm involved or not, I'm involved, right? Like, Amanda, can you take a look at this book cover? And I'm like, that book cover is not going to work.
That's so ugly. Oh, let's be clear. You've helped me write, for sure, all of them. Even when you have a publisher, you still need, like, your book publisher's like, who's your editor, or who's helping you with this, or who's helping with that. Even when you have like traditional publisher, you still need a whole team to help you get that thing done. Or some people get ghostwriters, right? And just have somebody else write it for them. But that's a whole other conversation.
That is. But I think that's one of the things that I've been grateful for, watching your journey through publishing, is to understand that how important it is to have, when you have someone who's been working with you and who knows your content and who knows the ins and outs and knows the story, and maybe most importantly, knows your brand.
Yes.
How you show up in the world, the colors that you use, the images that you gravitate toward. It's been surprising to me with some of the publishing companies that I've interacted with, how they don't appear to take any of that into consideration. It's surprising.
Yeah, I think they really depend on the author. And if the author doesn't know that, then that's probably a problem. Or they're going to have a book the book cover that doesn't look in alignment or doesn't really match their branding. Mm-hmm. So as like the author, you're always like, it's always up to you. Like, you have got to And we know authors who've walked away from big book deals because they knew the book wouldn't be what they wanted it to be. Like, I know someone whose book I read, he walked away from $1 million publishing deal, like had to give money back because the book they wanted him to write was not the book he was going to write. And then he found a different publisher who published the book he actually was writing. But like you have to lead, you're the captain of that ship to make sure that you feel good about that book that you're putting out and that it looks like you and it's the colors, to your point, are in alignment. But also, like, who's in your court? Like, is Amanda in your court? No matter what, you know, to have someone like you to look at and to tell you, because sometimes we're too close to it or too busy.
Yeah, too close. Well, and there's also all of those assumptions, right? Like I was even making that assumption. I expected to open up the book cover and see something that, according to all my assumptions, they would have looked into your brand, understood your colors, read the book, at least the subtitle, to know the imagery to use, you know, these types of things that were not really included. So it's all the assumptions. And I think when you're a new author or even a seasoned author, we make assumptions that other people know better than we do about certain things because that's not our field. And yet I think that's one of the things that I've been watching you experience over and over is like, I kind of know, like I kind of know what's going to work for my people, right?
Yes,
like, even if you don't know the thing to say, you're like, Amanda, what is it about this image that I hate or about this that I don't like or whatever, you know, you at least have that feeling that goes, that's not going to be right.
Yeah.
So I really appreciated that. And, you know, I would love to spend a little bit of time talking about that from the perspective of what you know around energy and quantum physics, because, you know, that alignment of knowing that you get around like an offering or the right price point, or, you know, because I see it in the book world of, you know, well, people say, well, you shouldn't use those colors. Well, you shouldn't use that image. Well, you shouldn't, right? Because it's not part of the formula for what attracts attention or, yeah, but if the author hates it, are they going to be really happy to show that to the world? Are they going to put their energy behind promoting it at all?
Right.
So, I mean, that's where I see it in my world. And as far as for you and your journey, what are some of the places where you've really had to kind of say, nope, this is actually more aligned. I know this is going to work.
Yeah. Just trying to think. I mean, with the books I self-published, obviously had more, you know, a lot more control from the beginning, but even then, like working with designers, you know, just fine tuning things. And the original of the Belief Zone is different now because the publishing company was bought out and the new owners wanted to do something different with the cover, which I really appreciated and actually like it more. I feel like it's more in alignment now, but that's part of it too, is I think you also, I mean, if you've watched books over time, their covers have probably changed, things have shifted about them, especially if someone's actively marketing them still or using that book in their business. So just, I think paying attention to, I mean, for me, it's a feeling like, is it alignment? Yes or no? And paying attention to that and not assuming that someone knows better. Like if I know something's a no, it's like, just no, we gotta change it. So I think trusting yourself in that conversation is really important, especially if you're a new author. Like trust your intuition. Like, is it a fit? Is it not? Does the cover look right? Does the inside look right? Like it's got to be in alignment with you, or to your point, Amanda, you're not going to want to sell it. You're not going to want to launch it.
Yeah. I mean, those books never get done. That's, you know, that's when we deal with over editing, right? Like fixing the same word 100 million times. And, you know, no, the spacing isn't right on the interior. It's like so much sludgy energy to try to get this thing. And for me, that's always the big question of what is it about the project that doesn't feel right, or what is it about the person who's just not quite ready for it? Like maybe it's just a timing thing, right? When I think about your first Belief Zone, that was the first time you put your face on the cover.
Yeah.
Right.
And
how was that for you? Because I hear people talking, I've heard so much talk about when it's appropriate, when it's not appropriate. And I always think, man, so many of my clients have a story around visibility.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. I, at the time, didn't want to do it, and the publisher really wanted to. And then I did, and then I didn't care. And then after I did, it was fine. It was kind of like I needed to break through that. And then after that, I was like, I don't really want it to be so much about me. And the publisher's like, well, the new publishing company was like, owner was like, well, we can change it. And I had a different vision that came through at the time. So while for a bit, and they're still out there, like someday there's like 2 different copies or versions of the cover, it was important to my growth and visibility to have it on the cover. And then I was over that. So if my face is on the cover again, great, I don't care. Like if that's what it's supposed to be, but if it's not, then let's figure out what that is. And so I think that just a reminder that you can change your cover.
Mm-hmm.
And part of it is like, sometimes you just gotta get it done, right? Like you gotta get done with what's in alignment right now, knowing that you can shift that in the future. Selling with intention, like that cover changed, I think 3 times. I think it was red, and then it was gold, and then the 3rd edition of it is green. And that one just evolved with me, right? It involved with the alignment and energies of what I was doing in my business and life.
Yeah. So that brings up one of the questions that I have for you today. And I don't think you and I have even really talked about this. This is something that's happened recently where you shifted the company name from Sales Coach Now to Ursula Inc.
Yeah.
And before that, it was Potential Quest. So can you share a little bit about that? Because there are a lot of conversations in the messenger industry around, do you put the person at the middle or do you put the message at the middle? Is there a timeline around that? So like for you, in relationship to your own personal growth process alongside the business growth process, like tell us a little bit about how that happened.
Yeah. So the first iteration of my corporation, as you said, was Potential Quest Inc. And what's interesting is my corporation is still Potential Quest Inc. because I feel like I'm on this search for maximizing my clients' potential, right? And my own, like how do we keep maximizing that? So that's important. Like I've kept that as a corporation. But then there was a time when it just felt like I was doing more sales training and coaching. And the download of like Sales Coach Now came through, and I'm like, oh, that really makes sense for what I want to do next. And so many people told me no, like everybody knows you as Potential Quest Inc. Don't change it. Don't change it. Like almost everyone's like, don't change it. And then I'm so glad I did because it made sense for what I was doing and it was in alignment for a long time. Fast forward, at some point I started to realize my clients had learned enough about selling and were starting to scale their businesses, but didn't know how. And I felt the call, like, especially during the time of COVID, like there was just the time to rebrand, and I was being called to all new programs. So Sales Camp, which has been our signature sales course forever, became a digital course. It's still available. And under Ursula Inc., I decided to launch our next course, 2X Intensive, with our CEO table and our co-creation collective group coaching programs on the back end of that. Like that just felt like that was what was next. But what I'll say is I don't, like, my company's not Ursula Mentjes. It's my first name, standalone Inc. And for me, energetically, that's outside of me. Like, that's not me. Like, I don't say, oh, I'm Ursula Inc. No, that's the company, the corporation. That's what's holding the container of all these energies for our clients, so to speak, for them to come into this quantum revenue growth container. So interestingly, while it is my first name, I don't feel like I feel very separate from that, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, I think, I mean, when I saw it, I was like, ooh, if anyone can pull that off, it's Ursula, because what I was thinking was pull it off. This is what I have wondered over the years, is, when you have someone who has experienced certain types of trauma in their childhood, where there was some sort of self-absorbed or even narcissistic or worse personality, which we've shared, right? Like there's this kind of like, I'm it presence in our lives. And so it's not safe to be visible. It's not safe to be heard. It's not safe to be, right? And so to watch someone step out of that wound into the center, like for me, what that has required for me to even get closer to like the center of my own world and business, because it was so much about like just helping other people, is all the work that it takes to be in the center and not be concerned that it's going to end up looking or feeling to other people the way that it did for us. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Did I say that? So like I watch people get to the point of visibility and really putting themselves at the center of what their work is in the world. And I watch them just like shut down. And I always wonder, because that is one of the threads that I see pulled through, is the having someone in the childhood who just was the person who took up all of the space and all of the air. And so we don't really want to be that, but we kind of have to be a whole lot more of that than we are in order to get attention, attract followers, get people to even hear about our message, right? Like, so when I saw you do that, I was like, wow, she did it. Like she got to that place, because it was right after that big conversation around the story in your book, right? But like all kind of happened at the same time with UpLevel now.
Yeah. Right. The decision that visibility, like being visible, was how I could lead versus hiding anymore. Like for me, Ursula Inc. is really about leadership and me standing in those shoes versus letting my past hold on to any of that, or anyone in my past hold on to any of that. And making the like the energy of that, so to speak, or the feeling of that, the feeling of, I'm leading from this place of wanting to help other people and really transform them, but I'm not doing it for them. They're going to do it themselves. We're going to empower them so that they can leave and continue to do whatever that thing is that they're doing in an expansive way. But, I had some, and at the same time, it's like, the book, like adding the chapter on visibility to the end of UpLevel now was really important, and how just the journey that, I've been on to be able to do that. And also having, like, when you're ready for that, they say, of course, the teacher will appear. And Amanda, you've been holding that space for a long time and really pushing me, like, go. And then some leaders showed up in my life who modeled that really well, that piece. And that was really helpful too, of like, oh yeah, you can totally lead in this space and not be narcissistic or fill in the blank. When you come from that place of, like, to not sound cheesy, but where you come from a place of love and, really wanting to make a difference. Regardless of who criticizes you. Like, that was the other thing I had to get over. The big part of being visible is not caring what people say or think about you. Like, that's their story. And like, I probably trigger people in that way. And then I just had to say, that's for them to figure out. I'm here for the rest of the people that want to be on this quantum expansion journey.
Yeah, I think it's been incredible to watch all of the iterations and to be able to see the work that you were doing behind the scenes to get to that place, where it's like solid. Because I mean, so much of our conversations at the spa and over coffee have been around, like, how do we do this better? Right? Like, how do we bring more of us and a more healed version? But we knew that we would have to, I don't even know how to say that, but yeah, what you're saying, like, how do we be that without being all that?
Yeah. Well, and to not think we have to be perfect either in that space, right? Like, how do we lead from a place of doing the best that we can every day, doing as much work as we've done on ourselves? So, for me, it's about, I think about how to be as whole as possible. And that's why I'm still doing the work. That's why I still read 5 to 10 books every month, because that's interesting, because I have to stay in the work. And Rebecca and I were talking about that recently, and how, like, Rebecca could go and retire. She's one of our coaches, our main coaches at my company. And one of the things Rebecca has said a lot recently is, she's like, I don't think I'm ever going to stop coaching, because she's like, I feel like I would lose my edge of what I'm creating, because coaching is so much about co-creating, but it's also about healing. There's so much healing that comes through that co-creation process of coaching. And so I feel that same way. Like there's times when I'm like, oh, I don't know, do I want to keep coaching? Yes. Like that keeps me on that leading edge inside the work, because things in the world are changing so fast. And I want to be able to help our clients at that highest level with what I know in terms of like how to help them, move faster to that next revenue goal. That's how we measure it, revenue. Like you want to 2x or 10x your revenue. Well, what's that going to take emotionally? What do you have to heal and hear to be able to do that in that way?
Yeah. Yep. Who do you have to be to achieve that? So we have two very young entrepreneurs in this space right now. What's coming up for you? I'm curious. What are your questions for Ursula? I mean, I know in the background, y'all are working on new proposals and contracts and bios and all kinds of things that are, part of that next level for you. So any questions or reflections?
I don't have questions. I'm gonna be honest. And I've done Ursula's like sales camp, and I know what she's all about, and I know what you teach there. And I've taken a lot of that to heart. And I've also taken kind of this year with my business to like kind of find out what I really want to do and hone in more on that, so I can believe more in me and what I want to do more after that, And I don't know. I mean, it's real. It's real when you decide what you want to do and you put your whole heart into it, that the opportunities come, and you really don't have any blocks around it. And sales camp definitely helped me do that for sure, especially around sales and knowing kind of like the value of the work that I do and can do. And so thank you for that. And also this year's going to be awesome for me, and I'm sure Alyssa too. Lots of amazing opportunities happen this year, and I'm just along for the ride right now. I'm only 18. Man, I don't need to go like, I don't need to have it all figured out.
No.
So.
And you don't have to right? Like just to know what you know and to be able to really be that creator that you are. And you have such a pure energy about you, Erin. Like you just have this pure energy that people connect with, which is, probably the gift of when you came onto the planet, and who's coming in now are these amazing souls like you who just have this purity about you. So I just want to encourage you, like, just, to stay on the, keep asking the question. When you stay on the question, the answers will come. Like, what do I really want to do next? Because you get to do anything, and you know that. And your next book is on the way. So for your library for 2022.
Oh, excellent. Awesome. Yeah, I don't think I'm ever going to stop asking that question. It's probably going to be different all the time. I think that's one of the biggest things that I've noticed, is that if I don't have novelty in what I'm doing, I get bored and sad. I got to be doing something new. You know what I mean?
Yes. Yeah.
But not go, jump around too much that I can't stick with, anything. But,
That's the beauty of having your own business.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's one of the beauties, I think, of this industry, and specifically just working with supporting entrepreneurs. It's like I've always felt like I don't really have the creativity or the innovation to keep coming up with new ways to change the world or new ways to do this or this, but other people do. And so I love jumping on board their ships and being part of facilitating their missions, and getting their stuff out. But it was really fascinating to me to hear about your publishing journey, especially because I'm on the newer end of that. I self-published my first book a few years ago. And then I'm part of the collaborative self project that we're all part of in coming out in January. But the novel series I'm working on, I'm still trying to get my feet for where I want to take that in the publishing world. If we're going to find a house for that, if we're going to create a house for that, or if that'll be a self-publication too.
I know Ursula's NLP ears heard we.
And Amanda went,
we're going to publish.
I tried to be subtle about it.
Well, I mean, here's the thing. I think we always know. So you get to choose, like, what journey do you want? Like, if you could choose anyway, what kind of publishing journey would you want your books to have? Where would you want them to go? I feel like books, they take their own journey, so to speak. So sometimes even having, that's going to sound crazy, but having a conversation with them might be really powerful.
Asking
You
the book.
always know. Yeah, you always know. Like, it's already like, I feel like they already, like, their path is unfolding. It's like you're gonna send them off to college. Like, what college do they want to go to? I would ask them.
Yeah, and it's kind of what you were talking about earlier, listening to that deep sort of energy that's around a project or around a book, and just kind of trying to facilitate the process with integrity.
Yeah.
So,
Well, congratulations to you. Like, you're already published, you know, and then now you're writing these other fiction books, and you're super creative. You've done some great work for my company, and you just have this super creative gift, and just being so young, like, to just wonder where this is all going to take you. So congratulations, Alyssa.
thank you. I appreciate that. It's really it's really quite the journey, especially when all the resources and people and just show up along the way, and you can't walk away from it.
That's the best part.
Yeah.
Yeah, someone was asking me about this publishing house that these youngins are talking about right now yesterday, and I was like, I think it's kind of inevitable,
Yeah.
how those things happen, and like I'm watching the part of me that's like, I don't know how, I don't want to, like all the things, but there's that energy that you're talking about, that just kind of knowing that,
Yeah,
with the way that the conversation happened, the way that this opened up, and these 3 people contacted me this week, and this one offered this, it's like, well, shoot.
Well, and we also have Ursula to blame for that a little bit, don't we?
A little bit, yeah.
She's the one who saw our toy factory. Actually, I don't think I have it within reach, but we all have elf names now, Ursula. I don't know if my mom's told you this. And so she bought us all shirts with our elf names on them.
yeah.
Great.
So
Yeah, I was gonna say, well, when all the pieces are there, like, it's already building itself. So it's got, it's outside of you already.
yeah, and that's one thing that you've been like super instrumental in my life, of helping me to see how, even for listeners who are like, what toy factory and elf thing is she talking about? At the beginning of 2021, I did a session with Ursula, and we talked about like what was next, what was in the field, and she helped me to like, oh, we're talking about growth and we're talking about expansion. I'm like, I don't want to do this. I mean, for 10 years, I think I've told you, I really don't want to run a team. I'm not excited about being a leader. I'm going to keep this small. It's all good. But over the last few years, I need someone to help me with design, and my sister's great at it. So I pull her onto this project, and then I can't figure out this tech mess. And so Erin is there trying to help. And then I need extra readers, and Lori and Teddy are, helping to do all of this editing stuff. And I'm thinking, well, this is just, it's still like, I still saw it as me doing the things. And so we did this session, and you're like, I kind of feel like maybe it's time to recognize that your whole team is around you.
Yeah. I can still see the visual of the toy factory. I was like, see a factory, and it's fun, and everybody loves to be there. And it just gets done. It just comes in. Here comes the idea, and out comes the book. Here comes the idea, and out comes the book.
Yeah.
So I have to chuckle at Amanda, because I call that kicking against the pricks.
Yeah.
And instead of embracing that moment. And so that's usually my journey is, kicking against it and then going, yeah, I have to embrace this, right? So it's been interesting to kind of watch somebody else go through that and be able to see it.
Let alone the person who helps other people do that in their writing, right?
Yeah.
It's really interesting.
Oh yeah.
It is.
We all need coaches, right?
Yeah.
It's really timely, actually. It kind of, oh, sorry, go ahead,
No,
Lori.
go ahead.
I was just gonna say, it's so timely that we're having this podcast with Ursula at the end of the year, all of us, after your session with her at the beginning of the year, and she sort of very intuitively predicted this trajectory for your business.
Yeah, she saw it all and was like, I don't know, I kind of feel like this might be what wants to happen. I was like, and then I was like, maybe I don't have to listen to her this time. And then I had a session with an astrologist, And he's looking at my chart and he's like, well, this year is about like like everything, rebuilding everything. So it's about rebuilding personal and rebuilding professional. Does that make sense in your world? And I was like, dang it. Yes. And so that's what it's been this year. But you know, to I think the point of this entire conversation is when it's the thing that your soul is guiding you to do, even when your wounds or your ego is like, I really don't want to do that. It's kind of inevitable, and it's just easier if you just figure out how to address the thing and get yourself lined up with it. Because this year we have done crazy amounts of things, and you know, revenue increase, like it's been amazing, and it's been a lot of work, but not nearly what I imagined to get here. So
Yeah.
it's kind of fun.
Yeah, well, that's the great part about scaling, right? Is it's less, eventually becomes less of you doing all the doing. So that's the hope.
Yeah. Well, we're almost there.
Congratulations to all of you, by the way. That's awesome.
It's been a lot of fun.
It is.
I have a quick question for you. You know, you've got all these books, you know, the 4 different books out, and you've Gull, and you've got I forget all the names of them now. But is there, you know, sometimes as you have grown, you've learned and you've discovered, you said you've written these other books to include more information. So are your books almost a series? You need to start with, you know, that beginning one and then work up to the goal setting, or does it matter for readers if they, you know, jump into the goal setting one and then go back to, you know, something else?
That's a great question, Lori. People ask me that all the time, and I say start with selling. Like if you're struggling in sales, start with selling with intention, because selling with synchronicity comes after that. If you're like you don't know what you want, definitely start with one great goal. In all of it, it's easier if you start with one great goal, because that brings a lot of clarity, and then you can work on your sales, and then eventually, you know, you go from here's what I want, here's the sales numbers and how to sell more. And then I'm going to start bumping up against beliefs, which takes people to the book, The Belief Zone, and how to let go of those limiting beliefs. And eventually UpLevel Now will be in the world. And that'll be like, I've done all the stuff and now I want to go to that next level. So there kind of is an order to them, but you could literally pick up anyone and go with what you're called to read.
Okay, great. That's awesome. Thank you.
Thanks for asking.
Well, I think it's about time for us to wrap this up, which makes me sad because I don't know, I need some chocolate chip cookies and another cup of coffee or something. But where can people find you? How do they get in contact with you? Because I'm sure that they will be eager to learn more about what you're up to after listening to this.
Yeah, thank you. So easiest is probably to go to ursulainc.co. So URSULA Inc.co. That's my main website. And then I hang out on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn, or my team hangs out for me, but I do approve all the copy. So you can find me there as well.
In the name of delegation.
I need lots of help. I am on Facebook. Facebook is probably where I am the most me. So yeah.
Yeah. Any final thoughts for our listeners or viewers?
Yeah. So like if you know, here's the thing, you know, if you have a book in you, you just know, like, you know, because here's how you know, because you're probably sitting here with us and you haven't written the book yet, or maybe your next book is wanting to come through. So you're in the right place. And definitely you have to get the collaborative book that's going to be coming out, and that's coming out soon, because you really can't make this stuff up, right? You can't make this story up. So definitely get that. That would be a great next step, just to really kind of dial into people's stories and what's happened for them. And I just want to encourage you to take the next step with your book. You know, it can take you 10 years to write a book, or if you get support, we've seen it done, Amanda, in 3 weeks you wrote your book. So it's all possible. If you feel the call, follow the call. You're meant to be an author. It's your sign.
Yeah.
And thanks for having me. Thanks, Amanda. Erin, great to see you. Alyssa, great to see you. Lori, fun to hang out with you as well.
Thank you, Ursula. Thank you for being all the things. You've been soul sister, a business coach, a cheerleader, a shoulder giver. Like you've been all the things for 15
Oh, wait, you
years.
forgot one, a quitting coach. We are each
Oh
other's
my
quitting
God,
coaches.
a quitting coach. Okay, so really quick, final tip for all of our listeners and viewers, get a quitting coach. These are the people who, Ursula, do you want to explain how this
No,
works? No?
go for it.
Okay, so at some point, I don't know how many years this was into our relationship, where we just decided that we gave each other permission to just quit, because it's not easy. The stories behind the stories are, financial messes, issues with coaches, oh God, so many issues with clients, right? Like all those moments where we would just call each other and be like, you will not believe what is happening right now. How do I work through this? But then instead of doing that, we would just go straight to, I quit.
I'm done.
I'm done. And the reply from the other one was always something like, okay, what else are you going to do? What else?
Or congratulations.
Congratulations.
What are you going to do next? Yeah. Which inevitably led to, I'll tell this. Okay. Inevitably that led to us saying, hey, let's start a coffee shop. So then our dream would be like, we would be baristas, and we would probably call, I think, Amanda, you're going to call it Sips and Sanity, right? Like, I think yeah. So there's the coffee shop. But then here's the kicker. There'd always be a conference room in the back of the coffee shop. And eventually we would start offering classes and workshops again and end up exactly where we were. So that was the circle.
Absolutely. And we even had this idea that maybe it would be a good idea to give really stressed out messengers and entrepreneurs who really truly just need a break. Like they need to just kind of let go of that death grip that they have on the project or the business for a minute. Just come in and be a barista for 30 days. Like just, and then like let go and let everything settle and just see what happens and serve up smiles and see that you can make a difference in the world like this if you want to. And then you'll probably end up back the way that it was before, but feeling better. So quitting coaches, yes. Final tip of the day, make sure you get one, because it's hard. It's hard. And it's harder when you don't have someone that you can be honest about how hard it is with. So worth it, over and over, worth it. But the middle part is tricky. So make sure you find yourself a friend or an ally who can be a quitting coach. So that's it for today. Thank you all so much for being here. Thank you, Ursula. Thank you, listeners and viewers, for being with us on this episode of Sips of Story and Sanity. If you like what you heard, please consider subscribing, leaving us a review, or maybe even sharing a comment about something that you're taking away from today's conversation, some delicious sip. What was it? You can also find out more details about the upcoming book that Ursula is part of. You can't make this story up. What if it's all happening for us at truetointention.com. That's it for today. Thank you.